Hey, welcome to SI Now at our brand new time, 10:30 a.m. Eastern. Good morning. It is Tuesday, February 7th, and I'm Maggie Gray. Joining me again today and tomorrow is former WWE superstar Matt Stryker. Coming up on today's show, LeBron calls it trash, but will we finally see the Knicks and the Cavs trade superstars? We still have some Super Bowl storylines to wrap up. After a year where the NFL saw TV ratings decline and some mediocre play on the field, Matt, did the Super Bowl and its phenomenal ending save the season?
My father gave me great advice when I was starting to date. He said, make sure you always finish strong.
Oh, whoa.
So I think falling ratings, oversaturation, Kaepernick's much publicized controversial stance or lack thereof towards the national anthem, I still have to say that I think a strong finish may have saved the NFL season, at least until week 1 of next year, right?
I don't know if it's going to travel to next season or if it's going to hold over till next season, but I think this Super Bowl gave the season an identity, which it was lacking, quite frankly, before that. We were talking about protests on and off the field. We were talking about mediocre play, Thursday night games, TV ratings down across the board, no fan engagement or lack thereof. And now we have an identity. It's Brady's season. It's the season where he became the greatest of all time, where Belichick cemented his legacy as the greatest of all time. And I think that's now what Super Bowl 51 and the 2016-2017 season is going to be remembered for.
What if the Super Bowl was 9-3? What if it was just the flattest Super Bowl ever? Would you say that the season was a disappointment?
I think that the season would have ended very flat, and I think you would have had a lot of people right about the impending, I don't say demise, because I don't think the NFL is going anywhere anytime soon, but you would have had people jumping on the sort of bandwagon of the NFL needs to fix itself or needs to make major changes going forward. Yeah,
it's one thing my mom always says. She always says, Matthew, I don't really care for football, but the last 2 minutes are my favorite.
Wow.
This is what she sounds like, yes.
I feel like she was here in the studio with us.
She's Estelle Costanza.
You got mom in, you got dad in, you got Gene in, you got no days off in.
Yeah, that's it. I think I'm good.
Are you done? Okay, one more person that we want to bring into the conversation and turn to the business side of things. Let's look more at the future of America's most popular sport and welcome in Paul Hagen, professor of law at Duke University. Matt, you got a question for him.
Yes. Hello, Professor. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Despite an incredible Super Bowl comeback that, as we were talking about, kept fans on the edge of their seats, the 2016 season revealed several potential issues for the league. So, starting with declining ratings, Professor, do you feel the decrease in ratings was caused by the political climate? And do you expect that decrease to continue into the next season?
Well, I think we actually don't know. The political climate has changed things. Millennial behavior has changed things. The ratings decline are part of a general ratings decline, and they're part of a worldwide ratings decline. So how much is just the United States? How much is the NFL? How much are big cultural shifts, I think, is still an open question.
You know, let's talk about those millennials and these younger demographics. How is the NFL going to engage these younger viewers or the 18 to 34 and younger than that in a way that they can keep this money flowing into the league?
Well, I think that's a question you should address to their business people. But the critical thing that seems to be going on is to give the viewer much more control. And if they can figure out how to do that, how to make them more actively involved, this is some of the interest in gambling is to create active engagement with the sport. Perhaps control over cameras, virtual realities. I think those are all possibilities, but you're dealing with people who have quite different expectations about their level of engagement and level of control when they're watching.
It's a really interesting point.
Yeah. Now, the NFL says they would love to hit $25 billion with a B dollars in revenue by the next decade. What is the biggest change the league can make to put themselves on that path? And how do things like Dow 20K, the relaxing of Dodd-Frank, and impending tax breaks impact the league's goal?
Whoa, those are really interesting questions. If what we've got is generally much higher levels of wealth in the country, then the goals get easier to reach, and I think that's probably the core of your question there. Essentially, what the big challenge that the NFL faces as the premier sports entertainment vehicle and sports in general face are whether a certain kind of social currency, what people are talking about, what you have to know in order to be part of a social conversation, remains sports or starts to shift to something else. And I think your comments at the beginning of the show on whether, in fact, having a storyline will make a difference, I think it clearly could. Can you continue to be the storyline that people talk about? Or, again, to get to Matt's point earlier, have politics in many ways displaced what everybody's talking about? And can you regain the ability to be the storyline in general social conversation?
Yeah, I think it depends also about how much people tend to look to sports as a distraction in many ways, and whether they want to use sports, and particularly football, as a way to sort of take a break from a lot of that political conversation. Just a quick thought for you, Professor, and that is that the NFL, they've moved several franchises in a really short amount of time, most notably 2 of them moving to Los Angeles. If there are more moves in the future, does that hurt the league in any way? Does that hurt that sort of currency that that belongs between the league and the players? Excuse me, the league and the fans.
It hurts in a certain number of small communities. I think basically what it may do is create more interest in the critical demographic and geographical areas that they may need to hold. So you need California. You can win the country in the Electoral College if you take the small towns in the middle. You can't win the ratings war.
Really interesting. Well, big game for the Blue Devils coming up Thursday against UNC. Professor Paul Hagan, we know you'll probably be enjoying that basketball game, and we appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, it's a mystery befitting Walker, Texas Ranger. Too bad it's not real. Law enforcement in Houston is wrapped up in a real-life whodunit. Who stole the jersey that Tom Brady was wearing in Super Bowl 51? Here's the play-by-play on how Tom's jersey got jacked.
Suffice to say that garment will fetch a pretty penny, don't you think?
We're hearing that a Brady jersey, this one from Super Bowl 51, is worth $500,000. Matt, I'm not a memorabilia person, despite our set here.
Yes,
this is not my doing here.
Collection.
That's crazy to me.
Well, listen, I think that the jersey will probably show up next week here.
It's not
under
us.
Your seat
It
cushion.
wasn't us. I don't want a Tom Brady jersey. I'm fine just where I am.
Either that or blame the Russians.
Maybe.
Normally, after a major championship victory, teams are invited to the White House. So the question is, win the Super Bowl, go to the White House? Question mark. Well, free agency is really something that a lot of people are thinking about, and today it's all about money and image. Patriots free agent tight end Martellus Bennett has publicly stated that he will not go to the White House as customary after a victory. Take a listen.
I haven't thought about it since our game, but I'm not going to go. Nah, people know how I feel about it. Just follow me on Twitter. And we all have our beliefs, and the thing is, we accept people for who they are. And that's the biggest thing about what this country is really about. I don't really care. For me, overall, it's just accept people for who they are.
Well, last night, New England free safety Devin McCourty revealed that he, too, will be skipping out on the White House visit, stating that he doesn't feel accepted, even though he's been invited. Social media was used to further opinions, as it always does, and alas, there is nothing new under the sun. We've seen past protests of Presidents Obama and George W. Bush. Personally, I don't think there's a place for this. I say shut up and go. Maggie Gray, what says you?
I just don't understand why becoming an athlete, all of a sudden you give up your rights and privileges that make you an American citizen. I mean, protesting is protected not only under the Constitution, the First Amendment, the very first one is the right for a peaceful protest. And this is absolutely peaceful. And not only that, it's absolutely effective because it gets us talking about politics. And since when is it such a bad thing when athletes use their platform for social issues? You look at the civil rights era with Muhammad Ali and with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Jim Brown. You look at women's rights, Billie Jean King and Title IX, Martina Navratilova, and people who are for LGBTQ rights, Abby Wambach, Greg Louganis and others. Athletes have pushed the conversation so much forward. Why should they give up the right to protest just because they want a title?
And I respect your passion, but I find this selfish and intolerant. I don't care who is in the White House. You respect the tradition and the office. Look, actors get paid to pretend. Athletes get paid to play a game, nothing more. So, to Mr. Bennett, I say, with all due respect, pick one, your $20.4 million contract with your $4.5 million signing bonus, or go be a political activist.
Wait a minute, but I don't understand what their contracts or their professions have anything to do with whether or not they want to protest a White House
I'll tell
visit.
you why. There should be a condition in contracts that state that players refrain from public political stances. They should keep a focus.
They've done so many good things in that arena.
They should keep a focus on the brand and the organization. Going or not going to the White House doesn't make anyone any more or any less money. It is still a business.
If they don't
like it, go play in the CFL. Go be an Edmonton Eskimo.
How about this? For the first time, maybe it's actually not about money. Maybe it's about standing up for what you believe in. How about having a little integrity and following through by making this big statement? I mean, do we just want athletes out there selling shoes and selling burgers? I mean,
so then deny the contract. Say, no, I will play, but I will play for my love of the game, and that'll allow me the freedom to be a political activist.
No, but what's the difference? I mean, what Martellus Bennett does on the football field is what he does for a living. Him not going to the White House is him as a citizen.
But that's what puts him in the public eye. They pay him to play a game. Thus, he's in the public eye. Thus, his opinions and his stances now carry more weight. And I think, again, it is intolerant and it's selfish. And that's a word, intolerance, you don't normally hear, but it is. Think about it.
Well, when Devin McCourty says that he doesn't feel like he feels comfortable with this invitation to the White House.
I don't feel accepted.
Accepted because
but you're invited. Thus you're accepted. Come to my house.
No, you're taking it too literally. I believe that what he means is that he doesn't feel accepted by this administration, by some of the divisive things that our president has said about immigrants, about minorities, that he doesn't feel accepted. Who are you to say that he doesn't feel right?
I take his words. He said, I don't feel accepted. To me, that doesn't ring well in my mind. You were invited.
But you understand that if you go to the White House and you stand with the president, whether you believe in his initiatives or believe in him or not, you're being used at that point as a PR tool and prop. If you're someone who doesn't want to be used in that way, then you can fully decline an invitation to the White House. It's your right.
Well, I know we have to move on, but if that is truly the case, then forego all your other rights. Pick one. Are you an athlete? Are you an activist? Are you an actor? Are you a spokesperson?
Jeez, I don't know if I see it that black and white. You've heard our thoughts on the subject, so let's hear the athlete's perspective. Don McPherson is a former quarterback at Syracuse University. He's a member of the College Football Hall of Fame. He's played both in the NFL and the CFL, but he's now dedicated his life to educational and community initiatives that use sports to discuss complex social issues. Clearly, this is one of them. Don, welcome into the conversation. We know you've been listening. Where do you come down on this issue? Is boycotting a visit to the White House something that you would support, or is it something athletes should stay away from?
It's totally in their purview to express themselves any way they possibly can. I think what's interesting about this particular conversation is, and I'm listening to you and Matt discuss, is this is a visit to the White House. This is similar to going to Disneyland. This is not in their contract. This is not a part of any sort of obligation to the game. Any sort of this is a narcissistic move that was done by presidents to show that they have a sports affiliation or a sports bent, whether it's the UConn women's basketball team or an NFL team or a baseball team. This was created by presidents to make themselves look like they're in touch with American sports. There is no obligation on the side of an athlete to show up or not show up. I think what's interesting here is that everyone's talking about it, and I think that's the power of the position, the social position of an athlete. He's not making any sort of major protest. He's not kneeling during the anthem. He's just decided that he doesn't want to go to the White House, and because he has an opinion about how he feels about the president. That's totally his right.
So, Don, if you were advising an athlete who was thinking about boycotting this event and this visit, what would you tell them about the potential pros and the potential risks?
Well, I think, obviously, when you listen to Matt's perspective, I think that's a very real feeling that people have, that as an athlete, you suddenly give up your right as an American citizen to freedom of speech and expression. And I think that's a very slippery slope for our culture. And I think where there's more of a challenge here is not going to be to the athletes. The challenge is going to be to owners and to the people on the other side of the table in free agency who are going to have to start making decisions that they will only want athletes who are going to be silent and catch the ball and shut up. And that's the message that's going to come out of this if all of a sudden this sort of position that a person takes is going to cost them in the game. And then the owners are going to have to make a decision. And I think this is not something that's just a flash in the pan. The more we talk about this and the more you all talk about this, and this has steam on Twitter and in the public eye, the more athletes are going to take this position. And the owners and the fans are going to have to make a decision about whether or not the games are worth it for them.
You know, Don, we had a list up of some of the notable athletes who have boycotted visits to the White House before. We know that it's pretty few and far between. That we've never seen whole teams do it. It's really been the exception and not the rule. Do you think we're going to see athletes boycott the White House more often now that President Trump is in office and he has already been so divisive just in his first few weeks?
I don't think that athletes are any different than any other American citizen. They're watching the news as well. They're watching the election. They're watching the debates. They're listening to the rhetoric. This has been the most divisive 3 weeks. I mean, this is supposed to be the honeymoon period in Washington for a new president, and it's been actually quite frightening for a lot of people. And I'm not talking about people like NFL players. I'm talking about people, members of Congress are wringing their hands with some of the things that are coming out of this White House. So I think that this is an extraordinary time that is happening in Washington, and I think that you're going to see more, not just athletes, you're going to see more people who are going to be hesitant and feel like McCourty said, I just don't feel welcome, or I don't feel like there's a place for me when I hear the rhetoric and see what the things that are going on and coming out of Washington. I don't think we're making this a point about a couple of football players, but they are representative of the American citizen.
We know one person who would accept an invitation to the White House, Mr. Matt Stryker, ladies and gentlemen. Listen, Don McPherson, CEO of McPherson Enterprises, all the great work that you've done, educational programs that you've implemented all over colleges and universities and helping children and athletes navigate these tricky waters. Thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure. Thank you all. Have a great day.
You too.
Can you imagine this team without Kevin Love, LeBron?
Nope.
There was a report in the New York Post today. You're probably familiar with it.
I heard about it. It's trash. And the guy who wrote it is trash, too, for writing that, especially during a game like that. So, it's always about outside noise, and that's just outside noise. For us, we got to focus on what needs to be done in order for us to continue to compete for a championship, and we got who we got. Our GM will do a great job of, figuring out if we need something else. But right now, we're in a good place.
That was LeBron James responding to a report in the Daily News, not the New York Post, that he is pushing the Cavaliers front office to make a trade for Carmelo Anthony, even if that means parting ways with Kevin Love. Matt, we know the Knicks want to get rid of Carmelo Anthony, but should the Cavs make this trade?
Well, it depends. You want to ease LeBron's burden of minutes that he plays every night, and a happy LeBron is a good LeBron. But on the flip side, I feel like the Cavs are in a panic, and they're afraid of perhaps not even getting out of the East. Teams like Boston and Washington pose a legitimate threat, and the Knicks could very easily turn around and deal Love to Boston in exchange for some draft picks that they desperately need. So unless you're going to get someone like a Brandon Jennings coming back, that playmaker that LeBron desperately asked for, I would not do this deal.
I think most teams can take sort of a longer view, but the Cavaliers are not one of those teams. Quite frankly, I feel like the Cavaliers are on the equivalent of having one-year contracts every single year, because every single year winning another title is so important to LeBron. He has already said that he is chasing the ghost of Michael Jordan. He's got 3 titles. I mean, he's got 3 to go just to tie Michael Jordan. And for LeBron, it's all about his legacy, and I understand why. And he wants to make sure that even if he gets to the finals, that they don't get embarrassed in the finals by the Golden State Warriors. I think he believes they need a lot more help if they're going to go up against that juggernaut. And maybe, as you said, even the Eastern Conference may not be a given at this point. I'm not sure if I agree. But LeBron is thinking in that short-term view. He's thinking long-term about his legacy, but also in the short term.
You talk about the legacy, you bring up Michael Jordan, and we've just learned today that it's come out that Jordan never asked for any help. He may have asked for another coach, but he never asked for any help. He did it with what he had, and you had a good point that he had Scottie Pippen.
Yeah, he had one of the 50 greatest players of all time, which is happened to play with the #1 best player of all time. And, I don't know if LeBron James at this point, listen, he had Wade and he had Bosh, now he has Kyrie, but are any of those guys as good as Scottie Pippen was? Maybe Wade, I'm not so sure.
Is LeBron James a whiner?
Well, listen, this is the whole thing that started the whole Charles Barkley dust-up, and their back and forth is because LeBron came out and said, we need more help. And people said, well, you have the biggest payroll in the NBA. You're LeBron James. Why do you need more help? But in my opinion, I think LeBron may be right. I mean, look at the juggernaut he's going to, we think, eventually face in the finals in the Golden State Warriors. And it's not about how much money you're spending. It's about where you're spending it. And I agree with LeBron that they could have been a little bit smarter with their money, because there isn't a lot of depth on this team. The trade for Korver, I think, showed that the front office is willing to make moves. I think they will make another one and bring in Carmelo Anthony.
Is there a better move that Cleveland can make?
I'm not so sure about that. I mean, that's going to take probably a more seasoned GM than me in terms of 3-team deals and things like that. But if you have Melo, who wants to leave New York, he has a no-trade clause, but said he's willing to waive it to go 2 places, L.A. or Cleveland, then I think you have to make this deal.
Yeah, I don't think the trade is a good fit. I think it would re-energize the Cavaliers, but at the end of the day, it just leaves a bad taste in your mouth, my opinion.
The one thing about LeBron is he can't act shocked when people come up with these kinds of sources say that there are trades. He was the one who said that they need more help. So now all of a sudden you can't call it trash when reporters go digging and find that there's back deal conversations about trades.
LeBron is very good at always being, to use a wrestling term, the baby face. He always just wants to be, but you have to believe behind closed doors something else has to be going on.
No, he brought it all out to the public, so we get to talk about it until the trade deadline at the end of the month. Matt, great being with you. Thanks so much. Great job. And that's going to do it for this Tuesday edition of SI Now. Don't worry, Matt will be back tomorrow. Of course, our new time is 10:30 a.m. Eastern. We're going to hear from college football national champion quarterback Deshaun Watson. But until then, stick with SI.com for all the latest news. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter at SI Now Live. We'll see you tomorrow.